All right, today we're going to try and pull back the curtain on one of the most secretive countries in the world, North Korea. We're going to use accounts from people who've actually escaped to understand what daily life is really like. So let's dive right in. So let's just start with this one quote from our source material because honestly, it's pretty shocking and it really frames everything else we're about to talk about. A child is born in North Korea, but at birth, that innocent child can be declared a traitor. Just let that sink in for a second. This single, chilling idea is really the key to the whole system. Okay, so the big question is, how on earth did a system like this even come to be? Well, to get a handle on the present, you've got to look back at the history that created this state of total control. It all really kicks off in 1945. After World War II, Korea gets split in two. The North is influenced by the Soviet Union and the South by the US. Then in 1948, the Kim dynasty begins its rule. A few years later, the Korean War breaks out, and it's devastating. But here's the crucial part. It never officially ended with a peace treaty. That means, technically, North and South Korea are still at war, and the regime uses that constant state of war to justify its iron grip on everything. So with that history in mind, let's look at how it builds into this system where, believe it or not, your entire life is basically planned out for you from the second you're born. This is what it means to be born into your class. The whole thing is built on this one core idea. It's called songbun. Think of it as a social class system, but it has nothing to do with you or what you achieve. It's all about your family's perceived loyalty to the regime going back generations. It's about who your great-grandparents were, not who you are. And the songbun system is broken down into three main tiers. At the very top, you've got the core class. These are people whose ancestors were, war heroes or revolutionaries. They get all the perks, the best jobs, they get to live in the capital city, Pyongyang, and they even get access to cars. Then there's the wavering class in the middle. This is the majority of people. Their ancestors were maybe farmers or laborers. They get by, but they're always being watched. And then at the very bottom is the hostile class. If your ancestors were considered enemies, maybe they owned land or were religious, you're automatically in this group. You are literally considered a traitor from birth and get the worst jobs, the worst housing, everything. Okay, next up, let's talk about how the state makes sure everyone only sees, hears, and thinks what it wants them to. Welcome to life inside the information bubble. I mean, just look at the difference here. It is night and day. Most of us have the global internet, with billions of websites. In North Korea, they have a national intranet. It's like a tiny walled-off garden, with only a few dozen government-approved websites. And of course, every single click is monitored and censored. So, how do they keep this bubble sealed so tightly? Well, the methods are pretty intense. All TVs are physically fixed so they can only get the one state channel. If you're caught watching a foreign movie, you could be sent to a labor camp. It's illegal to make an international phone call. And they'll even check your phone or a memory stick for any outside content. The whole point is to stop what they call ideological contamination. This control isn't just about information. It seeps into the most personal, everyday parts of your life. It's truly life under a microscope. All right, let's talk about something as basic as what you wear. Blue jeans. You'd think no big deal, right? Well, according to our sources, they're completely banned. Why? Because they're seen as a symbol of American imperialism. A simple pair of pants becomes this huge political statement. And it's not just your clothes. What about your hair? The sources say there are, get this, only 15 state-approved hairstyles to choose from, for both men and women. So much for personal expression, huh? And the list of rules for just daily life, it's honestly relentless. Want to go to the next city over? You need a permit. You can't own your own home or land or business. Practicing any kind of religion is basically illegal. You can't leave the country. Passports are only for the absolute elite. And even your bicycle needs its own license and number plate. It's control on every imaginable level. So you see, this is the really critical thing to understand. This system isn't just about following rules. It's about being in a constant, lifelong, high-stakes test of your absolute, unquestioning loyalty. And if you fail that test, the consequences are, well, they're terrifying. And it all comes down to this number, 3. This is the 3-generation punishment rule. If you're labeled an enemy of the state, it's not just you who gets punished. It's your children and your grandchildren too. I mean, think about the logic here, as twisted as it sounds. The idea is to completely wipe out the seed of rebellion so it can never, ever have a chance to grow. Okay, what about something that looks democratic, like an election? Well, surprise, surprise, it's really just another loyalty test. First off, voting is mandatory. Everyone has to do it. Second, there's only one name on the ballot. And third, if you don't show up to vote, it's considered an act of treason. So what's the outcome? Of course, it's a 100% vote for the one candidate. And the state doesn't present this as a lack of choice. No, they hold it up as proof of the country's absolute unity and strength. And this performance of loyalty, it's a constant, daily thing. There are these mandatory weekly meetings where you have to self-criticize and confess things, like not working hard enough for the leader. There are spies everywhere reporting on their own neighbors and family. When past leaders' death anniversaries come around, you are required to cry in public. And every single home has to have portraits of the first two leaders, and you have to keep them perfectly clean. So after all of this, you have to be asking the big question, right? Why? Why go to such incredibly extreme lengths to maintain this all-encompassing system of control? Well, from what the sources say, it really boils down to two main reasons from the regime's point of view. First, there's a deep, deep fear of rebellion. They seem to believe that if people got access to information from the outside world, the government would collapse. And second, there's the international isolation. Years of economic sanctions have just reinforced their us versus the world story. At the end of the day, for the regime, it's all about survival, and this extreme control is seen as the only way to guarantee it. And that really brings us to our final and maybe most important point. We have to remember that almost all of this information comes from defectors, people who have risked everything to escape. Because the country is so sealed off, it's nearly impossible to independently verify any of this. So what we have is a picture, a chilling glimpse into a world of total control, painted by those who lived it. And it really leaves you with a heavy question. What does the future hold for the millions of people still inside?